train is coming. Coon train is coming.
What about black on black crime?
Coon train is coming.
Where the white women
Coon
at?
train is coming. Coon train is coming.
All white people ain't bad.
Is coming. Coon train is coming.
We is our own worst
Train
enemy.
is coming. Coon train is coming.
What about black on black crime?
What's good, everybody? It's your brother Mad Black, the most dangerous and the most toxic black man on the internet. The brother who told you to get rid of those house Negroes on the plantation, but you didn't do it, and now we have to deal with their descendants every time we have to fight white supremacy. And I'm black up in your face again with some more pro-black commentary. So I had to play that tune from Tariq Nasheed at the beginning of this post because this is exactly what I'm going to be talking about. If Tariq Nasheed did nothing else in his life and career, he left a great song with that Coon Train song. Okay, that song is perfection, in my opinion, on just how derelict some of these Negroes are, especially the ones that deal with mass media. So, like I said before in my last video, I am going to be concentrating on the question of culture and the question of whose culture really is trash and whose culture really is the worst. All right. So, one of the terrible things about this demonic white supremacist bigoted culture that we live in is that it cultivates and creates these soulless and slave-minded Negroes that do everything in their power to serve this culture. One of the biggest problems that we have as black people is that we can barely fight against white supremacy. We have a hard enough time fighting against that, but then we have to deal with the traitors and the scumbags in our own culture who fight with white supremacy. And, they do it in many ways. They can do it physically. They can do it through, just blocking us in any of our endeavors, snitching and telling on us, or they can just work for the propaganda arms of white supremacy. And they do this a lot, both on the liberal side and the conservative side. And when they do this, this helps white bigots out there get their views out there for the masses. And basically what they do is they hide behind these Negroes here. I call them bigot-proof vests. They strap these Negroes on, and these Negroes protect them from the accusation of being called a bigot or a racist because, look, I think just like this Negro thinks. This Negro says exactly what I would say. So I can't be racist because this Negro says the same thing, right? But a lot of these Negroes are bought and paid for, and a lot of them are sick in the head, all right? So we're going to listen to a segment from Fox News, and I posted it on my Facebook. For those, I know a lot of people didn't actually see it. I posted it up like late at night, so I think only maybe a few people actually saw it and were able to like watch it and digest it. But I'm going to play this clip from Fox News, and it's a discussion between one of their black anchors. They made sure they dusted this Negro off and took him out of the plastic so that, anytime there's any type of racist or racial shooting in this country, they make sure to bring their little black lackeys out there to make it seem, okay, look, I know we're a racist network, but look, we got some Negroes on deck, and we got him to talk about this whole racist situation, because they know if this came from a white man, it would be painfully obvious how bigoted it is, right? So they got him, and then they got some two old sour milk Negroes to kind of, basically distract you and to cause confusion as to what this whole situation in Jacksonville was about. All right. And I'm talking about they got two old musty Negroes. They got a reverend, which they always go to the black church. Liberals and conservatives love going to the black church because these people are whipped the most and slave-minded the most out of our entire community. And they, a lot of the pastors are good at hustling people, so they're good with the gift of gab. So they always put these Negroes out there, and they got a Negro police chief. So someone very similar to Sheriff David Clark, who was one of the chief coons that was on Fox News. But he's obviously a Sambo, so they wanted to get someone else just to kind of shake it up a little bit and not have the same cavalcade of buffoons as they always do. So we're going to listen to this, and I'm warning you before we listen that a lot of the nonsense that these fools say is infuriating. A lot of it defies logic and makes no sense. It has nothing to do with the situation in Jacksonville. And people might even say to me, like, why are you playing something if what they're saying has nothing to do with Jacksonville? They're supposed to be talking about Jacksonville, though. That's the thing. This is what this segment is supposed to be about. But these Negroes can't help themselves. They always have to distract and deflect and create straw man arguments for something else. So I'm just letting you know, if it seems weird or it seems like what in the hell are these people talking about, they're supposed to be talking about the shooting, the racial shooting that happened in Jacksonville. Okay, so we're going to get started, and we're going to listen to Negro number one. I believe he is named Reverend P.M. Smith, and PM stands for the Paramount Minstrel. That's my opinion of what the PM stands for in his name. So we're going to listen to him first. And who's the fool that's interviewing him? The one with the hairpiece. What's his name? Lawrence Jones. Okay, we're going to listen to Lawrence Jones ask PM Paramount Minstrel Smith, and we'll see what they got to say about this whole situation. Okay.
Much for joining the program. This is the anniversary of the March on Washington. We have come so far as a nation. What do you tell the nation when something like this happens?
So, the anniversary of the March on Washington happened at the same time as this shooting in Jacksonville, and basically they're asking this musty old Negro, what do you tell the nation after something like this happens during the anniversary of the March on Washington? Apparently, this Negro claims to have been there when he was a young man. I doubt that. I know a lot of these old Negroes try to pretend that they were all down with Dr. King at that time, but the truth of the matter is a lot of these fools are a bunch of dusty old buffoons and liars, all right? And if he was there, Dr. King got killed for his beliefs. This Negro survived, so that should tell you all you need to know about his integrity. Let's listen.
Number one, I was 16 at the time of that march. I remember it well. Martin Luther King, Reverend Martin Luther King was a role model for me. Number two, violence. This is making national news. I'm in Baltimore. I'm in the inner city. This is making national news as a mass shooting only because the shooter was white, or if it had been a police officer. It would be mass shooting, racially motivated. I'm in Baltimore. We have a mass shooting every weekend. Friday to Sunday, there will be 3 or more homicides. Friday to Sunday.
That's not a mass shooting, dumbass. A mass shooting is when one person commits multiple murders. That's not a mass shooting. Having a homicide or a crime in a major city is not a mass shooting. That's not the same thing, dumbass. Okay? See how they like to play loose with the wording and BSing like that? Now, once again, the question is about the situation that happened in Jacksonville. And this Negro is already talking about crime in Baltimore. You see the straw man he's throwing up already? Let's listen some more.
There'll be 10 to 15 non-fatal shootings. So my heart goes out. My prayers for the families who lost lives, and that includes the young man, the sick young man. Call him another name if you want.
I will. He's a scumbag, just like you are. See, now you want to pray for the young man and call him a young man that shot up those innocent people at the Dollar General. You see the nonsense that comes out of these Negroes' mouths? And then you wonder why no one wants to mess around with the church. Why no one takes these buffoons seriously.
Sick young man who did this, but I'm telling you, in Baltimore, in Detroit, in Chicago, in Philadelphia, in St. Louis, mass shooting, 3 or more homicides, is normalized with us. Every week there'll be 3.
Yeah.
So he's talking about is normalized with us. Once again, has nothing to do with the situation in Jacksonville. Okay? That was one of the dumbest, biggest straw man arguments ever. And if Lawrence Jones, the person that's supposed to be interviewing this old musty Negro, had any integrity, he would have stopped him before all that bullshit came out of his mouth. I would have said this, old Negro, I asked you about the shooting in Jacksonville and how it compares to what the legacy of what happened during the March on Washington. I didn't ask you what was going on in Baltimore, okay? Because if you were really doing anything worthwhile there, that type of violence wouldn't be going on. If you were doing any type of worthwhile work in your community and not just coming on Fox News to buck dance, there would not be any homicides in your neighborhood, Negro. You're responsible for that. How old are you? How long have you been there? I want to know what have you been doing in that community to help it and stop that type of stuff. If you had been there as an actual leader and not just a buck dancing Negro who steals money from the community, it wouldn't be going on. But now we got the violence there because of sorry, sour milk old Negroes like yourself coming on Fox News running your mouth when you should have been helping the community. Now, we got that fool out the way. Now let's listen to Chief Coon. What's his name? Chief James Craig. Okay, I've seen him on Fox News before. He's legendary for his buck dancing on social media. So we're going to hear what he has to say about the shooting in Jacksonville. And once again, that's what this segment is supposed to be about. But let's listen to what this Negro starts talking about when asked, how he feels about it. Let me get forward and let's listen.
James Craig, he's joining us. Well, Chief, on this day as the investigation has just started, you got a new sheriff, Republican sheriff that is there in Jacksonville, Florida, made history down there. He made it clear that it was racially motivated there. And how do you handle an investigation like this, sir?
Now that's the question. How do you handle an investigation like this? Let's listen to his answer.
Well, and Lawrence, thanks for having me on your show. I got to tell you, and I agree with your guests, it's tragic. We don't talk enough about the black on black crime occurring in urban areas. I've worked in.
So, once again, the question was, how do you handle an investigation like this going on in Jacksonville? And immediately, this crusty old Negro starts talking about black on black crime. So you can't take these people seriously when they come out here and do this. It's obvious these two are plants, and they're clumsy at it too. They're not even good at what they're doing. They don't even know how to segue into properly cooning on social media and in the mass media. They clumsily just jump right from one subject to another. They don't even address what they're supposed to be talking about. Okay? Can you imagine, having a conversation with someone like this and they just switch the subject completely? You can't even stay on track. Negro, you shouldn't even have a job. He says he's a former police chief in Detroit. You shouldn't even have a job if you can't keep the subject straight. You can't hold a basic conversation. What's wrong with you, Negro? Is all the butter biscuits setting in with the Alzheimer's? I don't know. Let's listen some more.
Angeles, Cincinnati, Detroit for 8 years as chief of police, and mass shootings are not unusual. And certainly any mass shooting is a tragedy, but when will it stop? And I just got to say,
when we fire dumb Negroes like you, when dumb Negroes like you stop being in control of law enforcement, that's when they'll stop.
And it's not the gun, it's the individuals. This guy clearly had some racist intent, given what the Sheriff Waters talked about, but enough. It's enough. But let's talk about the other mass shootings that happen every single day in places like...
So you see, he had to switch gears real quick. So they have to admit that this was a racially motivated shooting. Had there no manifesto been found, they'd have been jumping back and forth trying to pretend that this devil didn't kill these people based on race. But they have to admit to it because he made it known with his manifesto, and they found that already. Okay? And plus his social media is full of racist nonsense. And his guns had racist remarks and symbols and everything else on there, right? So they have to admit that part of it. But you notice these Negroes here, they have to keep on trying to distract you from that. And like I said, no soon as they even brought that up, this Negro starts talking about black on black crime. Listen to this. He's going to bring up Chicago now, too.
It's enough. But let's talk about the other mass shootings that happen every single day in places like Chicago.
That's not a mass shooting, Negro. Multiple homicides is not a mass shooting. And you know this. If you worked in law enforcement, you know the difference. Okay? I'm not excusing knuckleheads out there shooting at each other, but then again, we don't know the circumstances of these shootings. These are not solved crimes. All we know, the only fact that we do know is that there was a shooting. These crimes have not been solved. So I can't come out there and say, oh, it's black people acting ignorant when I don't know the circumstances of what the shooting involved. Okay? Because someone defending themselves will be counted as a shooting in a neighborhood. You understand that? All they're saying is there was a shooting, and they just add that to the numbers. That's not, there's no investigations been done. No one knows if it's like a case of like domestic violence. No one knows if it's a gang shooting. No one knows if it's just someone killing themselves, because suicide also gets added to these shootings. So I'm not going to get all in a tizzy talking about, oh, there's multiple homicides in Chicago. I don't know what the circumstances are. Stop talking about making it seem like it's all black on black violence. And for one thing, we don't even know if it's all black people committing those shootings. There might be someone else doing it, but that'll be counted towards the quote unquote shootings in Chicago, right? So now we're going to listen to a part of this whole debate here. Well, I guess it's not a debate because these Negroes, they all agree with each other. So I guess that it's not a debate. They didn't bring anybody on that had an opposing view. This is all just one big buck dancing echo chamber, one big butter biscuit echo chamber for Fox News about what they think is really wrong, and that what's wrong is black people. So let's listen to the next segment of this interview here, and this is the section that I call the "What is we gonna do?" And this is where I guess apparently they try to come up with some solutions or whatever, but they're going to talk to Sheriff James Craig first, and he just has no solutions for what to do. In fact, he's kind of confused on what to do, and which is always the case when there's a white mass shooter. There's always confusion as to how we handle things, right? When it's black people, we got to create more laws and everything else to, attack black folks. But when there's white mass shooters, then the talk is all about mental health and everything else. And we're going to hear what he has to say about it. So let's listen here.
Yes, Chief, because the sheriff during his press conference talked about the Baker Act and that it was already implemented. He talked about the parents calling the police. He also said that the parents didn't want him to have guns. So I guess what do we do if we already went through the mental health process? You got the parents that were cooperative with the police. They reported that their concerns for their son. You got an evil guy that has hate in his heart. Is there any solution to this? Because I think the American people, that's what they want. They want solutions to whether there's a brother being killed on the south side of Chicago or a racist that has hate in his heart that goes in and targets people. They want it to end.
So they act confused about this whole situation with the mass shooters. They always do. Once again, anytime there's a white man out here killing people, they always act confused. Now, if someone snitches or tells on their black person who they think is going to commit a crime, the police are at this fool's door and arresting him. We all know black people get arrested whether they've committed crimes or not, right? Just being suspected of a crime, just being in the same vicinity of a crime. You can be picked up off the street and arrested and accused of the crime that they think has been committed just for being black, right? But now when you have these demons out here. We know that they're plotting. We know they're planning these attacks. People are telling on them, telling the police about it, but they never want to act on it. Okay, they always act as if, well, white boy, you can't stop them. You can't do anything about it. And don't blame the guns. Don't blame this white man. He has mental health issues. It's always mental health with them. It's never their culture, even though this country has been steeped in gun culture and shoot first, ask questions later since its inception. But we never want to blame the culture for these things happening. Let's listen to some more.
Well, Lawrence, there's a void. We can talk ad nauseum about, parents or witnesses calling. Certainly law enforcement has to do their job. I'm certainly not going to be critical of my friends out in Florida.
Of course you're not, Negro. See, he got himself into a little bit of a coon conundrum because he somewhat wants to say it's law enforcement's fault because they got to blame somebody. But then he realized, oh yeah, I was law enforcement. Oh yeah, I can't do that, right? And being a conservative Republican, we can never blame law enforcement. Law enforcement is never at fault. Even if they got a Negro at the head of the law enforcement, we can never attack law enforcement because we got to maintain that thin blue line. We got to maintain the idea that law enforcement is infallible and they can never do wrong, even when you tell them that there is a white mass shooter out there and they do absolutely nothing about it, right?
If they became aware of someone that was suffering from mental illness, that expressed a desire to engage in this level of tragic hate and evil, what was done? And if law enforcement dropped the ball, I'm not suggesting that they did.
No, I'm not saying they dropped the ball now. Don't get it twisted now. I still love my blue line. I'm blue before I'm black. That's basically what this Negro is saying. It's like I'm blue before black.
We need to look at that because we oftentimes, what do we say? You see something, you hear something, you say something. But if you say something and law enforcement doesn't respond, that's a problem.
It absolutely is, Negro. It's a big problem. And something needs to be done about that. Something really needs to be done about that. But the reason they don't respond is because the perpetrator is white. And if he was black, they'd have sent a SWAT team over his house. He would never been able to get out of his house. He wouldn't be able to buy a gun. See, the laws are made strict and stringent for us, not for them. For them, they can own as many guns as they want. Doesn't matter whether they have mental problems, whether they've had run-ins with the law. Doesn't matter. They make sure they can get a hold of a gun somewhere, right? Now, we're going to listen to the last part here of this little audio, and this is where the coon train truly goes off the rails. Okay, this is where it really just goes into, minstrel heaven, all right? And they go back to the Reverend P.M. Smith, the Paramount Minstrel himself, and this is where, they ask him another question, and he just goes completely off the rails, trying his best to distract away from white supremacy and racism. He blames everything but that. We need to get back to the family, so he starts using the nonsense that Larry Elders always talks about, where we need fathers in the home or whatever, right? And then he talks about abortion and everything else. Everything that has nothing to do with the killing and the mass shooting in Jacksonville. Okay? So let me cue it up, and this is what we're going to listen to. Let's listen.
Of our young adults in urban communities suffering from PTSD, and it's not being addressed.
It's such a good point, Chief. And, Pastor, I got to bring you back in because we've talked about a lot of the elephants in the room. Another one is because of this attack and because it was racially motivated, there's going to be an attempt to divide all Americans.
Americans are already divided, Negro. See, I don't like stuff like that either, where they make it seem as if the reaction to racism somehow is the bad part. Not the racist going out and killing people. What's bad is if you see that this person is racist and you want to keep your eyes out for these other racists out here. There's something wrong with you if you react to that. The racists going out there and killing folks, that's not the problem. You're the problem. And that's exactly what this dumb Negro just did. Let's listen some more.
What do you say in this moment of time to tell the American people, don't take the bait? One hateful act shouldn't be responded to with more hate.
So how is responding or reacting to these devils, how is that responding with more hate? Unless black people are running out there and indiscriminately shooting white folks, that's the only true retaliation. Me saying something about how racist this is and how disgusting this system is, that's not the racist part. Okay, I'm not even getting to the point where I'm taking the law into my own hands and committing the same kind of mass murder. See the nonsense, how they twist things and try to make it seem as if you even bring something up about this nonsense it's wrong. And they did that to Dr. King, by the way. This old Negro here, this old sour reverend talking about how he marched with Dr. King. Does he not realize that they used to say all the same BS about Dr. King back then? They said he was racist or he was anti-Semitic and all this other nonsense because he called out American society on its BS and its own white supremacy and bigotry. But let's listen to what this old, musty, old, dusty Negro has to say about what's the solution for this situation. Let's listen.
Lawrence, the chief and I are on the same page.
We all coons together. We're all on the same coon page.
This law in 2 states for 10 years. I defended the senseless behavior that's occurring in the urban arena where African Americans live today. And now I am burying that criminal behavior that's killing so many of our young people, killing so much of our future. Here's the reality. Life has been devalued. Life has been reduced to a choice, whether it's a mother aborting a child or whether it's a brother pulling the trigger on another brother.
The reporter asked this Negro about about the situation in Jacksonville and the reaction to it. And this fool starts talking about abortion and black on black crime. You see what I'm saying? You see, like Negro, do you have Alzheimer's? Is something wrong with you? Is there something wrong with you mentally where you can't keep up a real conversation? You just jump from one thing to the next? Like you need serious mental help if this is truly an issue. But once again, if black on black crime is a problem, it's because of you, Negro. Because of men like you or males like you. I'm sorry, you're not a man, obviously, because you can't stand up on your own 2 feet and have your own opinion. You've let the white supremacists basically write a script for you and you just read it out loud on this news program. Let's listen some more.
Life has little or no value. Our values have deteriorated over time. From 1963, 1968 to now, deterioration of the values in our African American community. Life means nothing.
So Negro, do you think that might have to do with the fact that when Dr. King was talking about peace and brotherhood, that he got murdered in 1968? Do you think that might have anything to do with it? You're sitting here talking about from 1963 to 1968. Dr. King was murdered, Negro. Was that black on black crime? Okay, he spoke properly. He did everything he was supposed to do. He was respectful, and he still got killed by these demons out here. His life was devalued, and black people's lives have always been devalued in this country. That's the MO of America. Let's listen to more to what this Negro has to say, and then we'll close out.
Death is in the power of the man with the trigger. What we have to focus in on, if we go into the root cause, is the F word. No expert is going to use the F word, but the chief knows I'm right. It's the family. The breakdown of the family leads to the breakdown of the neighborhood, the community, and the city. So we get what we get, where there's no authority in the family, when there are no boundaries set by the family, where there are no consequences.
Yeah, but I don't want to hear any more of this coon here. But yeah, I think there's another F word that's causing the problem here, and that's fuckery. Okay, that's the F word we should be concentrating on. The fuckery that comes out of these Sambos' mouths. Okay, and the destruction that they cause throughout the community with their words and their own inaction. Their actions and their inaction. So their actions come in trying to tear down the community with their words, making it seem like black people are the worst on earth. And their inaction comes from when they're supposed to be working in their community, when they're supposed to be helping and doing some good for the community, they're nowhere to be found. The only thing they do at the very most is reactionary and pointing the finger and blaming this, that, and the third and steering people astray. Especially people like this Reverend here. That's all he's ever done in his career is steer people astray with his bullshit from the pulpit. That's all he's ever spewed is bullshit from the pulpit. Okay? That's why his cities all the ones he's ever worked in are in shatters, are in tatters and just torn up and destroyed is because of people like him taking money away, enriching themselves, and snuggling up to these politicians and these think tanks and these political groups, kissing white ass. Okay? So that's what all this Negro accomplished in his life, and he took all that to elevate himself and destroy the community behind him, just so he can elevate himself and talk trash about the community that he comes from. You should be ashamed to even say that, Negro. If you come from that community and it's doing bad, that's on you. You're one of the quote-unquote elders of the community, and you've led it completely astray. Okay? Don't come out here talking about how you follow Dr. King and all this other stuff, and you've done no earthly good since Dr. King has left us. Since Dr. King was murdered, you've done no earthly good for your community. Okay? And I can't stand these posers out here. I'm coming down more on him than the Chief Craig. That's because Chief Craig, look, once again, he's been on Fox News before. He's known for buck dancing and being a big buck shine for Fox News. So it's kind of like whatever, right? That's what he does on there. Okay. Plus, he joined the police force and became got all the way to police chief. So he's really indoctrinated and with white supremacy on their side. Okay, so I don't respect him, I don't like him, but I understand that type of Negro. This other fool, this old, crusty old reverend talking all this mess and basically, acting like a schizophrenic. When you ask him one question, he starts talking about something completely different. This fool right here, he's just as bad, if not worse. These damn preachers and pastors, sorry about that, these preachers and pastors and then these police chiefs and these media suckheads and sock puppets like Lawrence Jones, these fools do all the damage in our community. Okay, they've done so much damage that I would say it's almost not being able to be repaired, but there are people out there with lots of sense. Everyday black people, I think, have common sense. And there are people like myself and others within the new black media who realize what's really going on here and can give you a real grasp of what's going on. So the next video I'm going to be doing very soon, I'm going to be talking about the other side of the coin. So we talked about the conservative side of the coon train. We're going to jump on the other tracks and talk about the liberal side. Okay, we're going to talk about that mammy that was running interference for Ron DeSantis in the next video. So you folks let me know how you feel about this one. Let me know how you feel in the comments. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. And this is Mad Black, and I will be back with my foot on a devil's back.